Okay, thank you. Uh, Welcome. This is the State Building Code Council Work Group for Economic Impact for August 25th, 2025. And I guess we can try to take roll, you think?
Yeah, I think we're sitting there okay at the moment. All right, Todd Byerthur,
Here.
Chell Anderson,
I'm here.
thank you. Angela Haupt, I'm not seeing in the room today. Dan Young,
Here.
thank you. Ben Omuro,
Here.
thank you. Katie Sheehan,
Hi, here.
and we are sitting good with the quorum.
Okay, and I see Ty also. Did you already say that?
Uh, I is I might hopefully my roll call's not messed up. Is Ty part of the group at the moment?
No, but welcome, Ty.
Yes, welcome, Ty.
Thank you.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm just listening in.
okay, good. Good. Um, Anyone else that could be recognized? Patrick.
Yes, thank you. This is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington.
Thank you. See a couple of names popping on there, but okay, we'll go on to number 2. Can we review and approve the agenda? Can I hear a motion to approve, please?
So moved. Second, this is Dan.
Thank you, Shell and Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And any opposed? That passes. Agenda is approved. Item 3 is review and approve the minutes from August 18th. This is last week. As we scroll through, can we hear a motion to approve, please?
So moved. This is Dan. Second.
Thank you, Dan, then Shell. Any proposed edits? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. The minutes are adopted, are approved. Okay, we'll jump right into then our analysis. Does everyone remember where we were, or want a quick little recap?
So looking at where we were, we kind of reviewed requirements of what we're trying to do here, and then we broke out from last meeting with some review to be done on the IBC, IEBC, the IFC, and the IMC, IFGC to come back to this meeting today. In between the meetings, the topic was raised at the MVP tag meeting to do a little bit of this, but I don't think that any occurred at the meeting. And so we're pretty much running with what we have going on here. I was in the process of updating some notes on the IBC spreadsheet that I have on screen here today. I did have a chance to run through the bulk of those proposals and just was updating the flags on what the proponents have indicated in their proposal documents, whether or not there's cost or not, and then putting some X's in the column for the work group of economic impact, flag for additional economic input here. And so I was in the process of updating my notes to this spreadsheet here so we could look at them. But for the majority of the proposals for the 3 codes, or I guess the 5 codes we are working with here today, most of the proposals indicate that there is no cost, that most of them are clarifying code change proposals that don't bring cost to the code by adopting these changes. And so that's kind of where we're at, leaving off from last week's meeting.
Okay, well, I did my partial homework, so I went through each one of the IBC and IEBC proposals and at least read and thought about the economic impact. So I'm happy to share those. I flagged a couple. If we want to run this by talking through a couple that I flagged that I could use a little help on, and then compare with your notes, Dustin.
I think that would be good. And then, with the increased frequency of meetings going on right now, I did not have a chance to get into the other codes that we have on the agenda for today, moving forward. And so would it be helpful, Todd, I guess, to share your document and I can update notes on our spreadsheet that we'll be publishing out as we run through it, or what would work best?
Yeah, that would be great. Or if I'm happy to share my screen real quick and then.
Okay.
Is everyone okay with working that way? It just is a handful. I have to send a request there.
No.
Okay.
I'll try to get that set up later so we don't
Okay,
have to
no.
request the screen share.
We got it. Now I went through created another column just so I could think of it as negative to positive, but we can convert those over to you see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll convert those over to your 1 through 5. So in my coding here, 0 is just neutral. I wanted to think of it that way, and then I flagged the ones that I just need a little help with.
Okay.
And then I wasn't very complete on the small business, but I'll circle back on that. Okay, so the first one is sorry, I'm gonna look off to the side while I'm doing this here. Hoyt, I think this is one of Hoyt's, the helipad one.
And
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I have that one marked as a small decrease based on the proposal.
Okay. I really don't, these are ones that I'm not subject matter expert in, so I just want to put them up on the screen and Dustin, if you have more insight on them, maybe we can talk just like for 20, 30 seconds on these but not dwell on them too long.
Yeah, well, reading through the statement there, my thoughts are they've got it marked as there is no economic impact, but down further in the economic impact statements, it says that, if there's anything, it's likely to be a decrease in the costs for this particular code proposal. And so I just flagged it as there is some sort of shift there. It's typically not one of the shifts that most people are concerned with, but I think that in the interest of making our process a little more robust, that any, if it's a cost decrease, we should include it in the statements as well and not just sweep it off our plate just because it's a decrease in cost.
Okay. Anyone have any opinions? It could be a decrease, could be neutral. Okay. I put it as neutral. I wasn't quite sure. It's just it's clarifying the shaft goes and the protection of the shaft goes all the way up, I assume. But okay. Next one is separation walls. I thought that was similar, wasn't it?
Yeah, the next two on your list I have marked as neutral by my reading.
Oh, this was sleeping units, right?
Or well, this is separation walls. You're on 03131, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I guess it would be separating sleeping units, but so I was in alignment with their suggestion that this one is just clarifying language and doesn't change
Yep.
the regulation.
I think that's fair. Anyone want to disagree? Okay, I'll just keep moving fast. Let me slow down if not. This is the fire barrier for
Energy storage systems.
yeah.
And Todd, are you sharing this on a vertical orientated screen?
Wow, what does it look like to you?
Well, when you open them up there, it's zoomed out way far when you're opening them
Oh
up.
yeah, I need to zoom in when I open the PDFs. It's just in the browser. Yeah. Okay, so for everyone, this is lengthy, but it's really trying to get grounded here, Dustin.
I think that this one, if I recall correctly, is it's marked as no impact on the statement. I agree with that one, and I believe that this one strikes a lot of amendment, bringing in 2024 language to the 2021 code, and then brings in some more 2027 language into the 2024 code. So most of this is clarifying. I do believe that this one refers back to NFPA 855, or I see 1221 there in the ICC proposal number documents. But most of this should just be clarifying the standards that are applicable to ESS within the IRC.
Okay. All right. What's this? Any other comment? Kind of coming down here.
I guess before we move on from those, so you've got those highlighted and you've got them as zeros, or that would correlate to threes in the
Yep.
columns that we have published. Does anybody think that these proposals need additional work, or is the content of the proposal document going to be sufficient for us to move our cost benefit analysis and particularly our small business economic impact statement? So I'm trying to get out a questionnaire that, as we flag some of these proposals, I want to work with some folks to get the questionnaire out to as many people as possible so we can get good information back. But I just want to make sure that if we're flagging them as no cost impact, that by de facto means that we're not seeking any additional information on there, and that the benefit of the code change is gonna definitely outweigh the cost, because there is no cost change, and then that any small businesses are not adversely impacted. So I mean, if there's no cost, that they're essentially getting whitewashed, not necessarily out of those reports, but with not very much input happening after we flag them like this.
And Dustin, it seems to me like the survey is kind of the ultimate level, right? I mean, just getting a spreadsheet up and flagging a few things we have, questions or would like additional input on is also, kind of that lowest level, right?
Yeah. And my thought was, trying to cast a wide net to get the most responses back, trying to narrow, like put out a questionnaire for the IBC, a questionnaire for the IEBC. That way interested parties can look at them that way, instead of potentially sending out an individual questionnaire for ones that we specifically flag, or a questionnaire that's over all of our group one codes that we're working with at the moment. My thought was to try to just get this spreadsheet put together and say, we're really looking for input on these particular proposals, but please comment on any if you would like as well. But we're trying to target some of this stuff, and the way I've been thinking about it is by code is probably the most efficient way to get it out there and get targeted response.
Okay. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, the one that you were just talking about, the fire barrier for ESS, the proposal link that you clicked on has nothing to do with ESS. It's the one about emergency responder communication enhancement systems. So I think the proposal link is wrong, but the ESS one that Dustin was talking about is correct. There is a 2-hour wall requirement, but it was just a pointer into it's basically a pointer or a placeholder in the building code that would require it. It's because the fire code pretty much just says, hey, you need to put a 2-hour wall in per the building code, and then now there'll be a building code section will say, yep, you need to have a 2-hour rated fire barrier.
And Ken, you're right, that is linked to the wrong proposal. It's going to 08. Well, I think I'm reading Todd's screen correct. It looks like it says 086.
It does, yeah. I'm at 086 now. That's the horizontal separation. So this is 085 would be the incorrect link.
Yeah, that one's going to 084, and so I'm making note to get that one fixed up.
Okay. And by the way, if anyone sees one on here you want to talk about, just because I didn't flag it doesn't mean and we'll go through, Dustin, your notes too, make sure we kind of sync them up a little bit. And I only have a handful of them, so I'm not trying to go through quickly so we can circle back.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on the ESS one then? Did you see the horizontal? The 86 is the horizontal. That was pretty straightforward, right? Okay. Okay, hearing no other comments on there. I'm just want to flag the basic wind speed. This was a long discussion at the tag. If I remember it correctly, it's primarily pointing to new maps, right? And so there was a long discussion here. So I'm trying to remember though if it's significantly changed, you know, the impact. Go ahead.
I know that all along the western coast there that there is a special wind region up there at the like Cape Flattery area. And then, you know, just recently at the IRC tag, we had a modification to the diagram. The Clallam County is spelled wrong in there. Shouldn't be a big issue with this
Yeah.
one. We can fix that. But I do believe that this is adding some new special wind region all along out there. And it is indicating that it should reduce construction cost based on my reading.
Yeah, I don't remember that part. I remember the discussion was lengthy on the consistency and where to draw the lines, and there's general agreement on how to adjust the boundaries of the special wind region, but I don't recall whether it's significantly increasing. But I think regardless, I think it's a. I mean, this is one where it says it was just misread that it says there is economic impact, but then makes the argument that it's minor.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to cover the bases
Yep.
and say yes if even if there's this minor stuff. So on my notes, I have this marked as a minor decrease, but wanted to put it out there for some additional input.
Okay. Okay. I'll jump then to concrete shear walls. So these were I think the argument is strong that these are decreases because I think if I understand this one correctly, if I remember correctly, it's decreasing the loads and it's aligning with where ACI is going. So I'm not a concrete expert, but I think I understood well enough that this has it says yes, but again, this one didn't give a reason here. Maybe it's embedded. I think the next one, sorry for skipping around here.
I think these had the same reason statements in like the life cycle cost and in construction cost. They're saying reduction of materials in both of them as a result of these changes reduce
Yep.
the cost.
Yep. That's how I understood it too. So just flagging in case anyone knows differently. Okay. And then I highlighted obviously the embodied carbon. That's going to be a whole other discussion. I mean, nothing I haven't already said already. The prescriptive pathways concern me, but this will get plenty of comment during the hearings. And then I put whole building LCA as a potential zero, but that'll be discussed at length. And then I think the last one's the EV charging. I hope that was a decrease, but that was kind of the point. But that could be debated.
So I have a couple more based on my notes
Okay.
here.
I'll give it up to you here.
Okay.
And then I stay neutral on all of the IEBC ones. Most of them were pretty straightforward.
I didn't update the share. Give me one moment here. So let's see. So looking at my notes, this GP1055 for temporary structure loading, I had that one marked as a slight decrease, and popping that over, looking at the reason statements. So they say yes on here, but load reductions would allow would allow some decreased costs in the construction there. And
Yeah.
so it's not a significant drop in cost, but I have it marked as a slight decrease and want to send that one out.
I agree with the 055. I had that marked for a slight decrease.
And then um, on, hold on, I'm juggling windows here. They're starting to get out of control. Then I also had for the 24 GP1053 referenced standards chapter, I have it marked for a slight increase. So this sentence there, minor cost increases may occur for buildings in higher risk categories. It's marked as no, but if there's chance for cost increase just because of the risk category or location of your building, I think that this is one that should go out for some additional input from the public moving forward. And so I don't quite agree with the no on this one, and so I have it flagged for slight increase. And then the visitability appendix 003, I have marked for a slight increase as well. Oh, right, and they have it marked for impact here. And so they have this statement here, and I don't have a good track on whether or not this is a large increase or a small increase. But since they're calling for some cost impacts on visible units, and I know that this is an optional appendix that they're talking about, but if we bring it in and jurisdictions adopt it, then there'll be cost for folks who need to comply with it. So I have that marked for slight increase. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, going back a couple proposal, I think this is where it's important to distinguish between something that's CBA related and something that's small business economic impact statement related. Because if it's increasing like the cost of construction, that's CBA related, and you don't necessarily need to do a survey for CBA. It's just the agency has to make sure that I forget what the RCW is, the probable benefits outweigh the probable costs, right?
Yep.
So that's the CBA. But if it's something that affects the small business economic impact statement, that's something, if it's like training, compliance, something like that, that's something that will be survey related. So, yeah.
So out of the proposals that we've run through so far that we've got flagged, do you see any bifurcation in those proposals needing?
I haven't had time to do a deep look through everything, so I'm not gonna necessarily comment on any specific proposals.
Fair.
Today I've been busy on the residential stuff. I'm hoping to try to get through them this week and look for stuff, but I just wanted to highlight that distinction, trying to help you guys kind of save your workload a little bit. So thank you.
So, Todd, maybe as we run through this, we're kind of identifying the ones that are indicating changes in cost right now. So I think we're really having the cost benefit analysis discussion. You had some marks in your spreadsheet discussing the small business impact. Did you have any in there that you felt were specifically going to impact small business?
Well, first of all, thank you, Patrick, because I think it's important that we're trying to flag these and when we publish this, then that it really stands out which ones we definitely are seeking input on. I did, well, let's stick on these first because and then I'll come back to the other ones. Because these are two separate ones. So 055, I lost track of them here.
Yeah, they're not in number order. That makes it harder to find them on the screen sometimes. Let me see. 055.
What line item is it not?
It looks like. What is it?
I got it. Temporary.
31.
Is that what we were talking about? I think we already moved on from temporary structure. I think I said the wrong number. You have it right there, 053.
Oh, I have it open. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the reference standards one. You had
Yes.
this one? Okay.
So this one, I'm not an expert, but this one's has been a kind of a hot topic right now, right?
Yeah.
With adding I don't know enough about ASC 7 on this front and whether or not adding these amendments is controversial. So if no one's gonna jump it in there, I mean, this would be a good Roger question, I think, too. Okay. Well, if hearing no comments on that one, then skipping to the next one you brought up, 003. This is the one where I think I understand it with but I also, when in the language about the cost, I take a little bit I have a little bit of just pause, I'll put it that way, with this is one where they're, blaming House Bill 1110, for potentially adding cost. So I would like someone to really weigh in and vet this. So I think it's important from both the construction cost side, because I think it's valid that it potentially adds accessibility cost, right? But I have concerns on whether or not it's
Like, is your concern is not whether or not it's exempt because of legislative language, is it?
no, I think this is the one that essentially says unintended consequences of House Bill 1110, right? Yeah, right there. So I just think it's one we definitely need to flag and get input on.
Okay. And so I definitely have that one flagged. The embodied carbon ones I have flagged. Um,
And again, on the embodied carbon, that is the one, and I've said it many times in public meetings, the impact of small businesses there. I'm less concerned about the design side of it, more concerned about the infrastructure side, the supply chain side. So we'll flag them and we'll get plenty of comments.
so 053. Okay. Getting to the other, oh, that was the wrong box. So we covered the embodied carbon ones. I have both of those, the BFRW and the original proposal that we're moving to CR 102, flagged for some additional work there. I have also the EV charging one flagged. And the last one I have on here that wasn't on yours, Todd, was 063 for ground snow loads.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that now.
And so I have that one flagged as an increase here. This one was prepared on behalf of the building code tag. And so when we get to the economic impact statement, they say no. But then the statement here indicates that likely there is economic impact. And so I guess the application of the snow load maps are hard to quantify everywhere across the state. So they, I guess in some places there could be a decrease in impact, in some places there could be an increase. And so for that reasoning, the tag didn't put any economic information into this particular proposal before submitting it.
Yeah.
So I think that this one's one that we could see a wide variety of comments on if the statement that it can apply differently across the state. And so I think this one should go out for some additional information as well.
I think I agree it should be flagged, if only because I put it as a minor decrease. I think so. Let's just flag it and have a conversation. You know, when Josh Merrigan presented on this, to him, I believe it was much more about higher resolution and then moving towards a hazard-based approach for snow. So I'm not sure there was a strong stance either way that it was going to necessarily increase. It's just would be potentially more accurate.
Right. Okay. And so with those, I think that our notes pretty well align for what you had shown there, Todd. You know, as far as flagging stuff for the small business stuff, I think the EV charging one should be flagged for small business impacts. For sure, the embodied carbon proposal stuff should be flagged for small business impact. And those are the only ones that are really jumping out at me as something that might be disproportionate to small businesses.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And I guess pause there for anybody from the group to chime in on any concerns. Katie.
Yes, so you probably covered this in the last couple meetings, and I apologize for missing those. But so we're flagging these proposals because we think that there may be some cost impact, but it doesn't mean that, you know, after people review these, that they couldn't bring up other ones, right? Like ones that we don't flag, right? So,
That's correct.
okay, all right, just double checking.
And
Thank you.
Katie, weigh in on that. I think, you know, we're trying to, I think the goal is to get something published. And then on that list, try to highlight things that we had questions about and would like more input. And
Right.
and then definitely things that need to go out for survey, to Patrick's point.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else before we move on to the existing building code? All right. So with that one, let me clear some of this stuff out. And this one. All right, with the IEBC, I didn't have a chance to run through these. Todd, did you have an opportunity to go through these ones that have been moved forward to see?
I did. They were all, to me, they were all very straightforward and had no impact.
Okay.
And no small business impact either.
All right. Anybody from the group want to discuss any of these proposals in any further detail? All righty. So we'll run with those. And I think that looks like we're doing okay with those particular proposals. All right. Dan, did you have an opportunity to go through any of the IFC proposals to see what your thoughts were on these?
Yeah, I did actually. Most of them were just clarifying things, so there are threes. The ones that I had questions on are the crowd managers. Um, yeah, the on line 5. If you open it up, they talk about there's no construction impact, but it's going to be an impact for large crowds. So I think that should be flagged because there is going to be a cost,
Okay.
but there is no construction cost. So it's just basically added labor costs.
So would you characterize that as it seems insignificant to me at the moment, as far as major cost versus minor cost there. So I was planning on putting, not a dollar sign, but a number 4 in there.
Yep.
And, do you think that this would be, disproportionate to small businesses who have to comply with crowd manager, requirements?
The I get I guess the question is how much is it going to cost to actually have more people there versus, and then you have to get into the versus safety. Um, you know, uh, how much does a crowd manager cost? I mean, you're just talking labor costs. You know, open for discussion with people because to me it's kind of I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to say it, a cost of doing business if you want to maintain safety for the people that are coming to your event. And this is for groups over 500 and 1,000. You know, this isn't like a local bar that has 80 people in there. You know, this is when you're having an event such as a music event or something like that. But it'd be good for discussion. Looks like Angela has her hand up.
I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, cost of doing business is, yeah, that's fine. But is this an increase in cost of doing business that's disproportionate to small businesses? I think is the question. It's not whether it's worth the money or not. It's if this is enforced on a smaller business, is it something that is, disproportionately harder? And again, I don't know what it costs to hire or how many more people it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's my thought too. That's why great for discussion.
My
I
understanding of
think
the
we should
proposal.
flag.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Joe.
My understanding of the proposal is it strikes out a section and adds nothing in its place. Is that correct? Just looking at the proposal, it strikes out a section on crowd managers and adds nothing. So it would seem to remove a requirement.
Oh, so they're repealing an existing amendment to this section and adopt the model code.
Okay. What's the model code say?
Give me 2 seconds. This is
While you're doing that, Ken has a comment.
Yeah, the model code section says where facility or events involving gathering more than 500 people, crowd managers shall be provided in accordance with 403.11.3.1 through 403.11.3.3.
I don't know how you got there so fast, Ken, but I wish my computer went that fast.
It's my job.
So basically, we're lowering it from 1,000 to the IFC to 500.
Yeah, his proposal had it. I think the state amendment was a. So if you
You want to see the state amendment on this one?
if that's what he was scratching, right?
Yeah. There's about 500 people. So exceeding 1,000 people. Looks like the state amendment probably just changes 500 to 1,000. Oh, I'm sorry, I clicked into the wrong stuff. 403. Yeah. Looks like it just changed the number back to 500 instead
Yeah.
of 1,000.
Well, no, there's actually some other language in the state amendment, or where required by the fire code official,
True.
or as required by the fire code official. So this gives the fire code official the ability to ask for crowd managers even under 1,000. And if you also go back to your 403.11.3.1 number of crowd managers with the exceptions, it has outdoor events with fewer than 1,000 persons in attendance shall not require crowd managers, or assembly occupancies for religious, under not exceeding 1,000. So what has really happened here is that we've deleted the opportunity for the fire code official to say, hey, I think there needs to be a crowd manager. So I would think that this would be a lesser cost for this committee to be discussing, because now the fire code official does not have the ability to require crowd managers at all.
So, I mean, so yeah, we're taking out the fire code official option there. But if we say that the crowd manager is required at 500 and below instead of 1,000 and below, that would be
But if
more strict requirement.
sort of, but it based if it's an indoor event. Outdoor events, if you have less than 1,000 people in attendance, do not require crowd managers.
Okay.
So it would only be if you had an indoor event between 500 and 1,000.
Yeah, and then number 3 also says the number of crowd managers shall be reduced where in the opinion of the fire code official.
Yep.
So you're reducing, but you can't add to.
Exactly.
So I guess this would be kind of, I guess I would change mine from a 4 to a 3 or even a 2 then.
Okay. Well, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. No, that's why we're having the discussion, because
Yep.
thank you, Ken. Yeah.
So, and I guess as far as this impacting small businesses disproportionately, I guess anybody who's going to have one of these events is going to be required to do a crowd manager potentially. And as I'm looking here at the RFA, it doesn't necessarily say whether it's disproportionate or not, but we shall prepare a small business economic impact statement if the proposed rule will impose more than minor costs on businesses in an industry, or if requested to do so by, the JARC. So if we do impose more than minor costs on those businesses, we're supposed to attempt to reduce or modify the requirement for a couple different things. So do we see this as necessarily disproportionate or imposing more than a minor cost on them? And I know that threshold for minor cost is can be potentially a moving target, but in the absence of information on some of the businesses that might be going there, it seems that $100 is the threshold for minor cost for businesses without information on those businesses. And I guess we're marking it as a reduction, so I guess it doesn't impose more minor cost to them, but.
And then the next one that I had marked as a slight increase would be the solid fuel. And that's on, I think, line 22.
Okay,
Before you move
Yeah.
on real quick,
go ahead, Patrick.
if you're lowering the threshold couldn't that for some, I'm assuming this would be like an events management, or if there's like an event space, if they would now fall in that space that it gets lower to, and they now have to hire a crowd manager, I could see that as potentially hitting $100 fairly easily in terms of just labor.
Yeah.
So it's something you may want to flag in that case.
I'll put an X in there. This is, we're, I guess, just now getting the wheels on the road now. And so it won't necessarily hurt to get this included in some additional input questionnaires. Okay. Dan, you had us
Solid
on
fuel on 22.
22.
Line 22, I think it is. Yeah, and that's just adding the cost of carbon monoxide detector to fuel. If you have solid fuel in a mobile mobile food preparation vehicle, you're going to add the cost of approximately $60. So that would be under that $100 threshold.
And so we'd say probably minor increase. And as far as that requirement for small businesses, probably doesn't hit that threshold.
Correct.
Okay. Change that actually from an X to a Y. Okay.
And then the next one is bulk storage of tires, which is 28.
Okay.
This is they're changing some of the definition of bulk storage of tires to the aggregate volume of stored tires exceeds 20,000 cubic feet. In their analysis, they said that there is a cost, which could definitely be over $100 to a small business. The question I actually have is the way it was written and then the way they're proposing it to be written. I guess it depends on how the jurisdiction defined it before. Because to me, it just said before the bulk storage of tires exceeds 20,000 cubic feet, and we're changing it to aggregate. To me, it was kind of the same thing. It was just kind of a clarifying, but Ken has his hand up, so.
Yeah, I'll try to help out a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so the problem is that people would interpret that this saying, hey, if I have a building that's large enough to be able to store tires, and it was 20,000 cubic feet of it, the storage area is 20,000 cubic feet, that I had to have a sprinkler system. But that's why this proposal was put in. It what happens is you could, if you have just a smaller that if smaller amount of tires being stored and you don't have 20,000 cubic feet of tires being stored, but your area is 20,000 cubic feet, this wouldn't require sprinklers. So that's why I'm just trying to figure out if everybody's reading this the right way. If you look at what the existing language was versus what the proposed language is.
Mhm.
See, in buildings and structures where the area for the storage of tires exceeds 20,000 cubic feet. So if I just have an area that I'm storing tires and it's more than 20,000 cubic feet, regardless on the number of tires I had, I would have to sprinkler it.
Correct. Okay.
And now this is talking about the actual area that I'm actually storing the tires, you know, that this amount of storage. And I think that might have been more the clarifying. It's similar to, I think of the mattresses. Remember, we were trying to get the
Mhm.
area stored for mattresses. So it's the area stored for mattresses was over 2,500 square feet. And it wasn't the building. And once the building was 2,500 square feet, it was the area of actually the hazard that's being stored. And that's what we're trying to get here. It's based on the area hazard, the hazard that's being stored, that accumulative amount, not just because the building's really big.
And so for like on the plans, they would have to like designate this area. And they would just take the area that's designated on the plans, not necessarily the whole fire area or room area, whatever it should be.
Yeah, I could have a you know, 10 million cubic feet of storage area, but if I'm only using 1,000 cubic feet to store tires, this amount of tires shouldn't be driving my sprinkler system, would be the size of my building. Just another way to look at it. And honestly, I haven't read Dave's reasoning down here. Now I have to rephrase myself. Now you got to look at the section that he's adding is an 1103.5.7. This is brand new. So if you had an existing building that met this 20,000 cubic foot threshold, now you're telling them they have to sprinkler. That's your cost increase.
Okay. So yes, it would have a more than $100 effect on a small business. So
And we don't see this as a major increase on construction costs though, right?
correct.
Okay. Or sorry, that was not supposed to be a 5.
I have to disagree. This is a huge increase. If I have an existing business and now I have to put a sprinkler system in.
Well, yeah, then it is, yes.
So the 903.2.9, the chapter 903 section is not at all, but it's actually lessening the cost. But the retrofit for existing 1103.5.7 would be an increase. So I just want to make sure you guys get it right. And as a fire official, yes, I'd love to be able to retrofit and take care of this hazard, but this committee needs to understand that, yes, it would be an increase.
Okay. So mark it as a significant increase. Oops, we're trying to make capital 5s. Okay. Any more on bulk storage of tires? Ben, did you have more from the
So the
fire?
next one, the separate systems, I could not get that to pull up. So I don't have a comment on that. It would not, said failed to load. So the link was bad, at least with mine.
Okay, it's giving me the bad link as well.
Yep. So I can't comment on that one.
Okay, let me just make some notes here. All right.
And then, like I said, the rest of them were all no impact because they were pretty much just clarifying languages. So those are the ones that I had flagged.
Gotcha.
And then, like I said, the separate system, since it didn't pull up, I can't comment on.
Ken?
And I don't know if you guys brought this up because I wasn't listening to IBC, but the one on line item 31 it would actually be a decrease in costs by allowing a 13D system to be installed instead of a 13R system. So I just want to make that clear because my buddy Patrick at BIAW would love to know that it's actually lessening the cost.
Yes, you are correct.
And I concur, and I had it as a I had it as a 2 on the IBC version.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do we want to flag that for small business stuff at all? No, we had it marked as no on the IBC.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I would recommend.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to attempt to open up 009 R1. It's taking a moment. Here it comes. It said it was doing it. Not sure why it's not popping open.
I guess it just doesn't want to be talked about this meeting.
Well, I'll dig into it a little bit. We'll leave it going for now. All right, so outside of what we've discussed here today, everything else seems to be a no cost, no small business impact. I'll pause there for Patrick.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might save you a little bit of time to talk about this now, but if you're gonna do a survey for the stuff that you flag for the small business economic impact statement, it might be helpful to have an idea of what industries are going to be affected by that. Because I think like most of the time you're dealing with construction related stuff. Sometimes with just general businesses, but I think that events one, that one might be unique. You can just have staff do it, but I don't know if you want to include that while you're discussing things, it may save you some time down the road.
As far as like trying to identify those industries that might be beholden
Yeah,
to
I
it.
mean, if you at least have general idea, if you want to flag one or know ones that you think might be different than the typical construction categories, or if you just want staff to handle it later, but just something to keep in mind.
I mean, I think that, this one could be applicable to a lot of different industries depending on who wants to hold an event. And so I guess, are there any thoughts on any specific industries that, I haven't had an opportunity to go through the classifications lists that are out there. My thought on sifting through that one was to hopefully find the industries that are most applicable to the building codes and then and target them primarily for some of this small business input. But is there, any thoughts on the crowd managers one that, we can maybe identify some other industries? I just think that there's, off the top of my head, it seems like it's very broad in application.
I mean,
And
you could, if you're gonna flag it, you could do property management. Since it's usually like a venue.
Well, that good. Okay. All right, well, as we run through this, I'll hopefully be able to flag some specific industries that that is more applicable to outside of the construction industries, and hopefully get some input there. Ken,
Yeah, I still think you really got to think about on that one that when the fire code official with that authority in there, if right now, the fire code official can require a crowd manager in the state of Washington no matter what, with no number. They're looking at striking that amendment and going back to the base code language that takes it out of the fire code official's hands and just says 500 people. So it's actually a cost savings based on the fire code official not having to make it, doesn't get to make a decision, can't require. So if somebody decided to leave that amendment in there, then you could have crowd managers at a lower level, at any level. And I just don't know if you understand that fire code official could do that based on our state language. That's why it was put in there.
Angela?
It's still an increase in the mandatory areas that it applies now. So yes, a fire code could, but they don't have to. So, they sometimes, maybe Seattle would always do it. Maybe, Spokane would never do it. So by lowering it, you're increasing the threshold for where these are mandatory and not based on the opinion of an individual. So it's still an increase per the code language, because it wasn't saying that the fire code official had to require it. It said they could if they wanted to. And now by lowering it to 500, the fire official can't say, oh, never mind, we're only going to allow it 1,000. It has to be at 500. So it's still a mandatory, it's an increase in the mandatory threshold.
Just for reference, the NAICS code for arts, entertainment, and recreation is 71, if that helps.
Said for arts, entertainment, and recreation, it's 71.
Yeah. And I don't know if everything would apply under there, but it seems like that might have a lot of stuff.
And say the acronym again, NAICS. Oh, you're muted. I think I read your lips though. It looked like you said the same thing.
Gotta make sure I press the right buttons. NAICS.
NAICS code 71.
Yeah.
Okay. That helps. Thank you, Patrick. All right. And so Dan, you had no more on this one to flag.
Correct.
All righty. Before we move from the fire code, does anybody else in the room here today have any comments on fire code proposals? All right, so after this meeting, I'll come through and edit these in to be no impact for the ones that we don't have marked already here today. And then we'll be making some plans, and then I guess we'll bring back 009 to discuss next week. All right. And for the IMC, Ben, did you have an opportunity to run through any of these?
Yeah, Dustin, I did go through them, and as you mentioned, we brought it up on the MVP tag meeting last week, that just requesting feedback from tag members as well as other folks on if they felt the statements contained in the proposals were accurate. And we have another tag meeting scheduled for this Thursday. So we potentially might get some more feedback before the next economic impact meeting next, I guess, when's the next meeting?
It's planned for next Monday.
On Labor Day or?
Or actually, let me revise that statement. I don't have one for next Monday specifically
Okay.
planned yet. That was the thought on the cadence, but I haven't hashed out if we're gonna have one next week with everything else we have going on as well. Potentially Wednesday is what I'm thinking if we're gonna have one next week.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so yeah, I did have a chance to go through. We didn't get much feedback from the tag at the meeting last week, but we may get more feedback this week. So overall, I don't know if I don't think you had gone through this on your side, but when I had gone through, the majority of these were editorial or clarifying proposals, and the ones that would have potentially more impact were mostly related to refrigerant piping requirements and referring to newer ash rate standards, which would have either a net neutral impact or potentially a lowering of cost. So those were noted in some of the proposals to have a cost impact, but it was indicated that they would have a decrease, if anything. So that seemed in line with what I would assume as well. So I didn't have any that I flagged for cost increases in here, and then the ones that were noted in the proposals for cost decrease were if we okay, looks like we got the lines in here, 14, line 14, 15, 17.
And these are all slight decreases.
Yeah, I mean, some of them could be fairly significant, but I would assume they're at least a slight decrease. I don't know if, do we have a threshold for major?
I don't have I had some thoughts on it, but when I started reading into the statutes and in what those thresholds are, what I had in mind is not in alignment with what they had. I was thinking somewhere in the 20% range. A change more than 20% would be a significant, but it seems to be a sliding scale a little bit, and so I don't have a great threshold for that just yet.
Okay, and yeah, I would just mark those as twos, I guess. So 14, 15, 17, and 21.
Okay.
Those are all the ones that were indicated in the proposals as having decrease, and then yeah, I think those were the ones that made the most sense. There's some that have potential, but it's not as clear that they would have that cost decrease. And then yeah, all others would most likely be a 3.
Okay. And is that ring true for the 2 for the IFGC?
Yeah, the IFGC item 2 is editorial, and then item 1, this is one that is in IBC, IMC, and IFC. I think for those 2 is also a 3.
Okay. Anybody with comments on the stuff for the IMC or IFGC? Not seeing any hands cropping up. Is there anything? I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Todd, for running us through here. I don't think that we need to run back and revisit any of the proposals we've done so far today. I do want to share the draft of our questionnaire before we run out of here and get some input on that.
Sure.
Okay.
And is the goal that we'll publish some form of this in the near future?
Yeah, this one, so Patrick, you were mentioning you needed X amount of time to get this out to your stakeholders and back. I think you said 2 weeks on that one. And so looking at our timelines, let me get to where I can see a calendar here. So today is the 25th. Ideally, we're wrapping this up by the 19th of next month. And so, Patrick, is 2 weeks what you need to work with your group, or do you need more? Like more time's obviously better for this, but what is your ask to have this ready to send out?
I mean, ideally, if you want good responses from people, and typically they don't like responding to surveys, but having time to get that out in our like monthly magazine and other publications, and then having time because they'll probably look to me for some advice on how to fill it out. So having time to go through everything, preparing, cross-checking if there's anything additional we think needs to be added, and then getting people to respond to that. 2 weeks is like maybe might be able to having like 2 weeks to respond to the survey, but if you don't get it ready until the 19th of next month, that doesn't really give 2 weeks to respond, and then it doesn't give staff any time to compile everything and then take any steps for mitigation if you need to. So yeah, I
Well,
mean,
my
I'm
thought
I'm
was
gonna
to have it back by the 19th.
I'll have
So
it back by the 19th.
yeah, so it sounds like if we're gonna try to have any sort of robustness there, that we need it to go out here by the end of the week, early next week.
Yeah, and that'll still I mean, that's still gonna be a massive lift in trying to do that on our end, but I'm gonna try. But I can't make any promises as to if like it's not gonna be enough time to really guarantee a robust response.
I hear you. Chill.
Thanks. Yeah, I can say our attempts at surveys are, you don't get a whole lot of responses. But on the other hand, you need to give a deadline that's somewhat near term, or else people will just not do it because they'll say, "Oh, I'll do it later," and then they don't do it. Is that the entirety of the small business outreach statement or engagement is through Patrick's mailing lists? Is that
No,
I
we're trying to do it through other venues as well, but right now the mailing list through BIAW is one of the larger avenues that we can hope to get back some responses. We're looking to send this out via Gov Delivery, via the website notification, and potentially some other avenues that haven't 100% been identified yet, but potentially news release as well.
okay? Thanks. And sorry, I missed a few meetings or the first two meetings, I think.
That's all right. Um, so trying to get this out there as soon as possible to get stuff back. The coming back on the 19th and trying to have all this ready to be done by October 1 is going to be tough. We're putting together the rest of the CR 102 documents in this time frame as well. We're making headway. But there's a lot happening right now to get this across the line. So for CR 102 filing on October 1. And I guess that leads me into kind of sharing my draft of this spreadsheet, or not the spreadsheet, but the questionnaire I've been working on. Trying to find it here real quick. I've been using document. Go ahead, Katie, while I'm digging this one up.
Yeah. I heard Chell's voice, and are we not doing the energy code, or are your tags doing that on their own, Chell?
We are doing the energy code for small business impact, and we're trying to also bring that stuff to bear. I'm not sure how it's all going to work, so the plumbing code's not going to be ready by next week for distribution of these questionnaires. Neither is the IRC. And we're going to be looking at what we can do with those two codes as we get there. The energy code's a little bit different. We have some contracting coming into place as we speak for cost benefit analysis, but the small business economic impact statement is a little shy on that stuff. So we're trying to work that one out as well, but I don't have a great methodology for that as we move forward.
Okay, thanks.
Johnny?
Yeah, hi, sorry, Johnny Kutcher with RMI. I joined a few minutes ago, and I was wondering, I'm a little, what's the questionnaire? I'm catching up a little bit, and I'm a little confused.
So we're looking, right now, our goal for this meeting is to flag proposals that are going to have cost impacts more than, well, I guess we're trying to classify them as minor or major, and being minor increase or decrease and major increase or decrease. And those ones will be kind of selected as the focus points moving forward. Then also for the questionnaire part of this, the small business economic impact statement, we don't have a lot of data in the proposals on how that might impact small businesses. And so we're trying to reach out to get some additional information there. And so the questionnaires, we're trying to identify the targets, specific proposals, and by those proposals, identify specific industries on which to be targeting for additional input.
And has that questionnaire happened in previous code cycles, or is this new?
I would ask Krista. I've heard from her that in previous code cycles that questionnaires have gone out, but the response level has been not great. And so I do believe in the past two code cycles, questionnaires have not gone out. And Krista, are you still on with us?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the last one went out in 2012 or 2015. I think it might have been 2012. So it's been a while.
And does SBCC staff come up with which industries to reach out to, or is that kind of been already decided?
Well, I guess we're trying to decide who to send it out to. If we had input from others on other industries that might not be identified, I'd be definitely welcoming of any such inputs. But we're attempting to go through and look at the North American industry. Oh, I'm not sure what this acronym is, but the NAICS database lists some industries, and people sign up to be a part of those industries. And so we'll be looking at that database to identify industries. And so we'll have the coding for that. And with that coding should come some targets for questionnaires to go out.
Appreciate you. This is a lot of work. I appreciate all the work you guys do.
Thank you. Patrick?
Yeah, question. Did you say that the plan is to not include the IRC and the UPC in the surveys?
Well, that's not the plan, but what I'm saying is we're not to the point where we're ready to send out those surveys with those two codes. So the plumbing code potential can wrap up this week and be ready for council action. The IRC still has a bit. There's, I guess, every chance that this could wrap up this week with the proposal recommendations. But I suspect that IRC is likely going to go into next week with its proposal recommendations. And so we still need to include them, but I don't know if they're going to be included in this first slug of questionnaires.
So if you didn't get them included, you'd try to do like a second.
Yeah, I guess that that's where we're at is, we're trying to stay on the October 1 timeline, and IRC and UPC are not happening in the timeline like the rest of the codes for this moment. And so I'm not sure how that's all going to shake out, but it does highlight the need to get them done fast so that folks who were trying to target for additional information can have at least a little bit of time to try to get back to us.
Okay, thank you.
Katie?
Yeah, how many do you know how many proposals each one of those have? Ish.
Off the top of my head, it's no more than any of the codes we have here before us right now. I think the IRC is in the 30 proposals range, and the UPC is somewhere in the 20 to 30 range.
I mean, because I recognize that this is like a lot of work for responders. Well, I don't know. It feels like we've kind of combed through what we can. Can we release those and say, these are the IRC, these are the UPC? Like, let us know. I mean, for your sake.
So I guess the answer is yes, we could, but we might be signing up for some double looks on some of those. So if we set this out for input on the proposals as is, it doesn't account for any modifications that might occur at those tag levels. And so, everything that we're looking at so far has been moved by the council to be included in a CR 102. The UPC and the IRC have not had that benefit yet, and so there's potential for changes to occur, and that's why I'm not trying to include them just
Got
yet.
it. Okay. I was trying, Dustin.
I appreciate it. I suppose we could, but we would probably be signing up for, double time on some things.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess one thing we could do is like for the UPC, we have like 2 more proposals to go through at the tag before we send it up to the committee and council. We could begin this process as well to just go around and review the cost impact statements and see if there's any clarifications or flag them prior to kind of going through it. And Dustin, I don't know if you see any reason we couldn't do that.
There's every reason to do that for sure.
So in that case, would that mean that we would, if we get the recommendation from the like UPC tag to send everything to CR 102 and prepare the survey for the cost benefit analysis, and then we can skip having it go through this committee just for timing?
I suppose it's possible, but I don't know what's thoughts from the committee on potentially not bringing those back to this group.
Well, Ben, I assumed you meant we could start reviewing the ones that have been recommended for approval, and there's low risk on that. Once the tags already pushed them and the committee is on the verge of passing them forward, correct?
I guess, Todd, I was thinking that it would be more as we're in the tag meeting this week, we could potentially get feedback. So then we would have a pretty solid basis for recommending any items for small business impact review or other requirements. So I guess my hope would be that today at this week's tag meeting for the plumbing code that we close out the remaining proposal review and have a initial review of cost benefit and small business impact to present to the this committee's next meeting, which would be next week potentially. Hopefully that would help potentially allow the plumbing code to be part of the questionnaire that goes out. But I don't know, kind of, it's really getting kind of close to when you're looking at doing that, Dustin. So.
You know, if that can occur at the tag level and be wrapped up here by the end of this week, it would be my hope to be ready with this questionnaire by the end of this week and send it out first thing next week. So I think that there's potential for that to work and to get a little bit ahead. I still think there's a long there's a tough row to hoe on those two codes to get them ready in time. But you know, I'm open to trying to get it done. And so with that, I'll share what I have going for the questionnaire draft. Trying not to reinvent the wheel. Let me get that so you can actually see it. This is a form for internal review of proposed rules. This is a form that's on the Orion website. So there's some stuff in here that I don't see as being relevant to the task that we're trying to undertake here within SBCC, but this is the closest to a questionnaire on the impacts we're trying to identify for our reports that go with the CR 102. So running through here, we have some identifying information about the rule. Most of this will get assimilated into the questionnaire that I'm working on right now. I'm hoping to bring a different version of this top part, the A, B, C, D, E rows of this table to have some inputs on and hopefully organize what's coming in after that. So if they concur with the proposal statements or if they disagree, and then they can attach comments outlining why. I don't necessarily need mail stops in here. I don't necessarily need the date returned in here. I'd like to keep this response to the comments received column in there just for tracking down the line. And so that's pretty much with these components. I'm hoping to use this as the questionnaire to do that and send this form out with the tables we've been reviewing here today to say these are the ones that we've flagged for input. So if you're interested in those ones only, please hit those. Giving all the proposals that have been moved towards CR 102 and opening them up for potential input as well is kind of my thoughts there. Chell, go ahead.
Thanks. So the table will include either 1 through 5 for economic impact, right?
Yes.
As well as the other information, but not a specific like cost or anything more granular than the 1 through 5. Is that the
That's
how it
kind
would
of
be?
where I'm running with it right now. Yes.
Okay, and then the commenter would respond to that 1 through 5 essentially. Is that, and then maybe provide an example or something.
Yes. I mean, and I'm still trying to work out how this all works for people responding back to this. But I like what you just said, Chell, is respond to the 1 through 5 evaluation and whether or not it impacts the small businesses in any sort of way. And if they concur with what we have in the reports so far, or not reports, but proposals so far, then they need do nothing else. But if they want to amend that information, then they would attach some comments and justification.
Like, for instance, if they look at a proposal and the economic statement in the proposal says it costs $14, they'd respond to that $14 or something, or they'd comment on that. Is that kind of the goal of this? Is it if they disagree with the 1 through 5, then they would maybe look at the proposal and comment on what they see in the proposal? Is that the level of?
That's kind of where I'm running with it. Yes.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Patrick?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with this document, and just looking at it, it looks kind of confusing for a respondent on what they're supposed to put and where. I'm kind of wondering, there's that guidance document from Araya that has those tables that I had pulled in and kind of gave you a suggested format for the survey. Is there a reason why you didn't go with that route?
Mainly because I'm trying to put this together this morning, and I'm trying to get a form together right now. I'm not opposed to using the stuff that you sent over, and I just haven't had a chance to incorporate all the information that I've got so far.
I think, I really appreciate the effort on this, and I'm glad that that there's a serious effort to try and do this. I just think that we're really rushing the process, and it's going to affect the quality and potentially even like whether or not this gets done by trying to just do things so quickly and not really have a solid idea of like the survey and stuff, but then potentially sending it out by this week or next week. So I just have to bring those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Is there any other comments on the questionnaires? So as far as my draft goes, it's not much different than what we have going on the screen right now. Patrick did send over some tables. I'd like to, everything that I've got returned to me so far, I want to try to include into the questionnaire survey. And, with all that's happening right now, I will share sentiment that it's a lot, and we may not be able to hit our timelines, but I'm committed to trying to make it happen.
Okay. Well, it sounds like next steps is maybe first over email. We'll start to get eyes on it, and then we can circle back right on when we're ready for a final form. So Monday is a holiday. What are we thinking for the next work group? I don't remember.
Well, Tuesdays are pretty well out. So Tuesdays and Thursdays in the AM have been taken up by the IRC tag. Tuesday this week we have the single exits multiplex housing tag. So Tuesday afternoon next week is open currently. Wednesdays are open currently. And then Thursday afternoon, I believe, is open, but UPC tag may be holding another meeting, and it seems like Thursday afternoon is the times that they can get quorum.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like the focus this week, Ben, you're making progress on the UPC. Potentially could get that pretty close, and then Angela's cranking on the IRC, but that's probably sometime next week. So we're potentially thinking next Wednesday.
I'm thinking or Tuesday afternoon. I'm open for either.
Okay. I'm fine. Either.
Does anybody have any conflicts with Tuesday afternoon?
I can do Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon after 3:30. I'm out.
Okay. So then I'll plan on the Tuesday afternoon for this group, and we'll run from 1 till 4. And we may or may not need all that time, but we'll hopefully with that one be coming back with the questionnaire and some more input on the proposals, potentially from IRC, UPC, the one from IFC we didn't get a chance to look at. And hopefully with that meeting, we'll be able to push the questionnaire out.
Okay. Okay. Well, it is a lot, but thank you all. Anything else on this, or we probably have another business item on there?
No, that was my only other business item, was to talk about
Okay.
the questionnaire.
Okay. I see a hand from Dwayne.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that this is more outreach than I remember us ever doing. So even if it's far short of perfect, we're being much more aggressive about getting out and trying to dig up information. This sounds like it's headed in the right direction. I think before we just tried hard internally to figure out what all impacts would
Yeah.
happen. So I think you're on a good track, even if it's far short of what you'd like to be if you had more time.
Appreciate that, Dwayne. And I agree. I mean, it's not reaching perfection, but if we get something published and we've had at least this high level discussion between the TAG chairs and all the interested parties, it's kind of the first step, right? But we'll keep pushing. Okay, I think that's it then. Thank you, everyone. We'll adjourn.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate the time today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.